Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Silent Man podcast. We went ahead and created this podcast for all the men out there that have problems with silent depression, where they feel basically that they don't have any type of support. They can't talk to anybody. I'm using myself as an example in regards to how how the podcast basically started. I was in the position where I was very successful in my field, and it just seemed like it wasn't enough. You've got success, you've got an ability to take care of your family, but you still feel empty. You still feel like there's something missing. And and even the people around me that maybe they said they were my friends. It was maybe friends in the good times, but possibly not when it was time to go home or, be on my own and be alone. So the Silent Podcast was born from that, and I've devoted all my time to bringing, this knowledge to all of us as men. And so let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Javier Talamantes, 51 years old. I have my own businesses, and I decided to go ahead and start the Silent Man podcast. And it all basically started from conversations I was having with my son in the morning. They were just, conversations about what he's doing, what's going on. And then I started really noticing that he's very bright, very smart, and he really listens to what I tell him. And so we were having a conversation, and originally I had started working with homeless people, and we didn't get too far with that. And so it was early morning, taking them to school, and I started having a conversation with them about I want to launch something to help. I really want to help people. I want to go ahead and be of service to people. And we started talking in regards to we've got two different avenues. We got one, we can go back and try to help the homeless, or two, we can go ahead and actually build a system for the men, right? Just men in general. And he says, well, what would the men in general, what are you talking about? What would that even look like? And I said, well, the way that would look like is it would be, a podcast with me talking, and basically people calling in, and, people of all walks of life, giving their opinions about what we're talking about. And and it was just very loose. We were just kind of playing around with the idea, never really thinking that, that was the day it was born. So he said, I think you've given the homeless people a chance already, and that didn't go too well with you. He's only 11. So he said, why don't you give your time and effort to something that's going to really fulfill you? And I said, okay. So the Silent Man was born that day. And the craziest part is, ever since then, we've been doing, podcasts, on the cell phone, and just, shooting videos and kind of getting a good feel about what it would feel like to speak, right? And in a lot of those instances, I learned things about myself. I learned that I'm still basically in the process of also healing, just like a lot of men out there. I have my own things that I'm going through on a daily basis, but it's not the whole day that I go through it. It's just moments in the day that that sprout up, and a lot of it has to do with programs, right? And if we all know out there what programs are all about, and if you don't know, I've done a lot of work, motivational speaking, going to different seminars, and it all came down to the same kind of principle with what all these seminars and the work really had to do with, and that was basically, put yourself out there, uh, get vulnerable. And that's one of the things that I want to do with you as my audience is I want to get vulnerable. I want to go ahead and basically strip all that armor off, and I want to just get real. And let's talk about these problems that we have right now as men that we don't talk to others. So understanding where it all starts from, programs is really something that we learn roughly from the age of 4 to 8 years old. All this is documented, by the way. That's not something that I'm just saying. And in all the seminars that I've ever gone to, they speak they speak the same thing. This is like 80%, 70 to 80% of what we're going to go ahead and utilize in our adulthood is learned, from the ages of 4 to 8. And that's kind of, that blows my mind that, 4 to 8, you're playing with your toys, you're out running around, you don't have a care in the world. You're just a kid. And to have so much of that influence you in your adulthood is amazing. And so, talking about these programs, me myself, I'll speak about the programs that I've had in the past. Growing up, my father was always working. He was a very hard worker, super hard worker. He was just amazing. He taught me that never to give up. Don't take no for an answer. Always just be diligent, and always, and that's when something came out of me is like, always ask why, don't ever take anything at face value. Even stuff that I'm telling you now, if it resonates and it hits, let it. If it doesn't, move on. And possibly, like in a lot of the work that I've done, it's just not the right time. It's just not the right place. It's just, maybe you don't need it, but look at it like a toolbox, right? Like a toolbox where you can put it away and then you can use it on, down the road when you really need it. Or maybe you'll have the aha moment, that's what I needed. Oh, I have those tools. And then, you utilize that. But programs are very, very, very powerful to the point where it could be running you. And it's in the back of your mind and it's just running. It's just like normal. Like you don't feel like there's anything there other than, that's just the way things should be. And so, before I started doing the work, I felt that. I felt growing up that, my dad was always working. I felt that he wasn't always there for me. And looking back now, even right now, it's just, having these emotions come up where it was like my mom was always there. My mom was always picking us up. My mom was always taking us to, the school, if there was a school function, grades, everything. Mom was always the one that would take care. And I thank my dad, for the opportunity for my mom to be a stay-at-home mom, because it really solidified, having a parent at home instead of, two parent working, because nowadays it's so expensive that you've got two parents always working. It's just that's just, we're always chasing that carrot. So, so going back to what I was talking about, it's like, there was points in my life when I felt really angry and upset, and I felt like, like sometimes that my dad didn't love me, right? And that stemmed from, he never really said it. He never really, wasn't the type that would wrap his arms around you and just hug you. And, it wasn't like that. It wasn't the type that, the word love you came out of his mouth. And so, when I was old enough and I started doing the work, because I was also, introduced to other races. I'm Mexican, by the way, originally from Mexico. And we kind of do things very different. Where Mexican men are very macho, where, and I'm not saying everyone, guys, so don't take offense to this, but, the high percentage are very macho. It's, They don't let anyone tell them anything. If they want to, they'll let you know something. If they don't, then don't ask questions. And that was the kind of attitude that, I was brought up with. And it wasn't until I was introduced to other races, and I was introduced to the way other races do it. And, and then I found out that there's not many differences in regards to races. There's a little bit of everything in every race. And then I came to terms with, well, let me ask my dad. I think I was maybe, I would say maybe early 20s. And I said, let me ask my dad. And one of the exercises at one of the seminars was, talk to your dad, mom, somebody in your family that maybe you've got something, right, that you've got to say, something that you want to say something, and you just don't know how, and you've just let it go so long, and this is the perfect time. Okay, so pick up the phone. Once we do our breakout, pick up the phone, and then call that person, right? And so they didn't suggest dad, mom, brother, sister. They just said, look, just pick somebody in your mind that you've got something to say to, and if something was to happen tomorrow, you wouldn't want that on your conscience. So here we go, right? And it's interesting because the same type of system that we're introducing on the Silent Man, podcast is called the buddy system. And so in this case, I had a buddy, right, and in the seminar, and the buddy was just like, it was like a super support system, right? She was right there with me, and it was crazy because I'm 6'5", she's like 5 feet tall, right? And so you've got this little gal, looking up at me and saying, "All right, Javier, you know who you're gonna call?" And I said, "Yeah, it's gonna be my dad." And she's like, "All right, you got to do this. All right, let's go. Come on, we're gonna do this. And I was petrified, okay, because we're talking about my dad. Like my dad. Number one, he's just he's high on this pedestal. He's always been, the dad of dads. Like he basically we never needed anything, not food, not shelter, not gifts, not anything. He would always provide. He was a super provider. And so here I got my little buddy, right? And she's looking up at me. She's just yelling at me, "Come on, you got to do this." And I'm like, "I don't know how to." And she's like, "What do you mean you don't know?" I said, "I don't know how to." I said, "I've been going through my whole life, like this, and I just don't know what to do." And she says, "Well, you've got to do something different. In order for this to even work, or for you to be able to do it, you got to do something different." And, and so now, now looking back, and like I said, guys, this is triggering some major like emotions right now, because I'm going back to that moment, and it's just huge, right? Because there were breakthroughs, and anybody that's out there that's had breakthroughs in your life, that this is huge. Like, so she finally says, "Look, you've got to do something different." And I kept thinking in my mind, like, adversity. Like, okay, so adversity hits you, you got to do something different. And so I said, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to just do it. And, you're here supporting me." And I said, you won't let me be alone with him?" And she says, "No, I'll be right there with you." So we get in the car. This is crazy, right? So before we get in the car, I pick up the phone, right? And I'm like, "Hey, Dad." And, and he's like, "Hey, son," we're speaking in Spanish. And he's like, "What's going on? I thought you were at the seminar, why are you calling me?" And I said, I gotta go home and see you." And he says, "Right now?" And I said, yeah, I got to see you right now. Super important. And so he goes, "All right." I go, "Are you home?" And he says, "Yeah." So we jump in the car, me and my little buddy, and we head over. And it's the craziest thing, right? These emotions are just overflowing me. I'm in the car, and I'm not driving, she's driving, and we're heading there, right? And as we're heading there, it's literally, I'm petrified. I'm just petrified. I feel like, even right now, like I said, these emotions are just coming up. I feel like I've got this knot in the back of my throat. I feel like I got sweaty palms. I'm petrified. Long story short, we get to the house, right? I go up to the door, open the door. My little buddy walks in with me. And my dad literally, I think he looked out the window because you could, back then where we used to live, you could look out the kitchen window and you could see all the way to the street. So he saw us both coming and he's like, what? I think he thought this is like an ambush or something. So I said, hey, can we come in? I got my buddy and she's, we need to talk to you. And he says, okay, like, yeah, well, I don't know what this is about, but, let's sit in the kitchen table. So we sit in the kitchen table and I don't know what happened. Like something in me just made me reach out. Like literally, let's say this is me right now. My dad is right here. And I literally just reached out and I grabbed this huge hands. I don't know if you've ever, like basically held your dad's hands, not when you were a kid, but now as an adult. Like if you've ever held your dad's hands and how much power is going through those hands. Like you just know there's power, like there's respect. And so I reached out and I grabbed his hands and I just overcame with emotion. Like literally tears were coming down my face. And, and he's looking at me and he's just like asking like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong? And I told him, look, I said, I've learned in the work that I'm doing, I've learned that there's programs that we learn when we're kids, when we're growing up. And sometimes those programs are so powerful that they stay with us all the way through adulthood. And we don't learn anything different and we're always going to do the same thing. And then basically, I wasn't accusing him of anything, but I was questioning, right? I was questioning why, why don't you tell me you love me, right? And guys, you have to understand, I'm still holding on to his hands, like for dear life. Because I figure he's going to run, right? Like he's going to get up and he's just going to bolt. And I'm holding on to his hands. And and now, talking about it, like I said, it's like being there. I remember how white my hands were from holding on so tight. And I remember I was just like in a stern voice. I was like, why don't you tell me you love me? Like, why don't you hug me? Why don't you, why were you gone when I was a kid? And it just started coming out. It was like a river just flowing out. And then the most like craziest thing happened. Like all of a sudden his tears just started like literally just flowing out of his eyes. Almost like if they turned on these faucets and they just were flying out of his eyes, right? And they're coming down his face, and I'm holding onto his hand so he can't wipe his face down. And I'm doing the same thing. And then he just belted out like I never had that when I was a kid, from your grandpa. He as it was, he was never there for us when we were kids, and the only thing that I learned from him leaving us and ever so often just coming back and just impregnating my mom and then just leaving again and then was like how to be there for a family, how to take care of my family. And it was just like, then all of a sudden I just understood him. Like he didn't need to talk anymore. Like that to me was enough to really understand like where he came from. And then it's like, and then where we could go from there, right? How our relationship could change, how the dynamics of, dad and son, how powerful we could be together and being one instead of being these two individuals that even though we have the same blood, flowing through us, that he's a completely different person than I was at that moment, right? And then at that moment, like I said, everything just came together and we were one, right? And it was like an unspoken language that we were able to start speaking. And so, you know, throughout all this, my buddy's just sitting there, right? And she's this little gal. Like I said, she's about 5 feet. Maybe she was a little shorter, and she was just looking at both of us, and not a tear was coming out of her eye. Nothing. It was almost like like she was in awe, like she had just witnessed this powerful, like, I don't even know how to say it. It was like everything we knew up to that point was completely blown sky high, and think of it like what they say, you know, in the universe and in space. They say that when two things blow up, it basically creates something new, and that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like everything we were up to that point completely just got obliterated, and we became like two new beings, like two new energies that were now almost in unison. And so we get up, and you know, my dad got his hands back, and I got up, and I was just, and I hugged him, and you know, for dear life. Like, the hard part about everything is that he passed away, right? Not then, but you know, we're looking at like we're going on 13 years that he passed, and so, like I said, guys, just talking about it now just brought all these emotions back, right? Because I was able to literally just spend time with my father right now, this is huge. This is huge, guys. So, but let me just let you know, like, if you guys have a father and he's still in your life, and you have sons, you know, daughters, you know, you have kids, a wife, you know, take care of them, and tell them every day you love them. Let them know every day how important they are to you, and you know, and don't take anybody for granted, because you know, that's not what we're taught in life. You know, we're taught in life to you know, at least from my point of view, I was brought to this world to be of service and to help people like yourself that are tuning in, watching us, you know, to be of service to you, you know. And then by me stripping down, being vulnerable, and then getting all that armor off, I want you to understand that we're the same. You know, I hurt. You know, if you hurt, I hurt. And it should be the same way. If you see me hurting, you should hurt also, because we're all the same. We all want the same things. You know, we want to be loved. You know, we want to be, you know, respected. We want to be. We want people to value us. You know, so we're all the same, guys. And so, you know, this is one of the main reasons that I went ahead and decided to start this, because for me, this is an outlet, right, of all the emotions that are raging inside of me. Because just like all of you, I'm a raging, like a raging fire, you know, and in most cases I'm under control. And like I said, we've got those crazy days where things are just firing in the wrong direction, and we've got things happening. But, you know, we need to control that. And the only way we can control that is not by just allowing us to get emotional and just, you know, saying, you know, screw it. It doesn't matter. I'll deal with it later. No, we've got to deal with those moments when they happen. Because if we don't deal with those moments when they happen, guess who's going to get affected? Number one, you're going to get affected, and you're going to act like nothing's wrong. But guess what? What about the people in your life? You know, once again, the people that we say that are the most important people, and why we do everything in this world, and why we go and work, and why we want to be successful, why we want to buy things for them, and why we want to go ahead and get them a house, and why, then we basically throw them out. And all that is just a lie. So if you really want to be true to yourself, then you've got to bring these people in, and you've got to allow them to see you in this bare form, right? In the form of, you know, no armor, just be vulnerable, and let them and allow them to see that, because you don't want, for all you guys out there, you don't want your son to grow up to be the same man that you are right now, which is the strong, silent type. You don't say anything because you know how to take care of things. You don't need to talk to anybody because you got it handled. And basically you have no issues because everything is great. Life is great on the outside, but on the inside, basically you're hurting, and it's like that inner child in you is just crying, and just basically wishing that somebody would just give you a hug, right? And just let you know that it's going to be okay, and that they're there to listen to, what you've got to say, and that together we can get past this, not by yourself, together. So, going back to what I was talking about with my dad, after that, right? So this was we're looking at like 2001, right? So then after that, I kept doing the work, motivational, everything I could get my hands on, reading, doing everything I could to just learn, right? Because at that point in time, I said, wow, this is powerful. I learned something, at a seminar, and it was able to go ahead and bridge this gap between me and my dad. And it basically made our relationship dynamics go completely like just, in the best possible way, and was like shooting up like a rocket. And it's like, after that, it was like, I was so thirsty for knowledge that I just kept going. But to talk about the relationship between me and my father after that, I got to tell you guys, like, the first thing that happened was every time I saw him, every time I said I was going to leave, every time something, whatever it was, right? If we met up somewhere, it was basically a hug, a kiss, and then I love you, and it continued like that, and then, we'll talk more about my father, in another episode, because something, I mean, if you want to talk about things happening in your father's life, or even in your own life, that basically puts you on a different level, like, like you've gotten it here, like, what your purpose was here in this world, like, because once you learn that, then there is really no reason for you to be here anymore. Like, you're going to learn that to get to that is the epitome of your life, because at that point in time is when you've actually left your legacy. And that's what I want all of you to understand and learn, is that we're all here to leave a legacy, whether it's to our kids, whether it's to our spouse, whether it's to, our family, whatever it is, guys. Even if it's somebody that you've adopted because basically their parents passed away or something happened. Like, you've got to understand that we've got a purpose and we need to find that purpose. So, like I said, going forward, I want to just share with you these amazing things that have happened in my life that have molded me into the person I am now, to be selfless, to just give, and just, to be of service. And I think that's one of the things that's really allowing me to heal, right? Because just like everyone out there, we're hurting, and maybe we don't have somebody to talk to. And sometimes it's not the easiest thing to talk to your wife. It's not the easiest thing to talk to, like a brother, like, because, or a sister, or someone, close to you in the family, because it's not the same dynamic. Like, men talking to men is very different than a man talking to a woman. Okay. So I just want to let you guys know, that we've got tons of episodes coming up, and this is just the beginning. And so hit the like, subscribe, and then, watch our next video as soon as it's coming out, because this is going to get real, guys. And so soon we'll have the live version where you can call in, and we'll also go ahead and include a PO box where you can send in your personal responses, anything that you want to talk to, and we're going to open it up for emails also. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time on the next podcast. Thank you.